Ladies and gentlemen, but especially the ladies, hey, how are you? We are here to see some more Protoss versus Terran action. HitEmUp will be playing Protoss in this match. I'm assuming he is playing random the whole time or whatever. But anyway, he's up against HitEmUp, and this is a nice preview of Thursday's playoffs match in Acropolis 2's Throne Room stage. Let's get into it. Of course, it's Near Impact, a map by Jujic, a map that has been a nice little staple of the macro games, but also some early action, early aggro. And we do have HitEmUp as the Pumpkin Terran in the top left. HitEmUp in the bottom right will be our, I'm going to guess, dark green Protoss. There we go, there we go. And indeed, HitEmUp has been practicing. I will point out again, just a reminder, even though HitEmUp just said, oh, I can barely beat you now, things are not looking too good, or what have you. Keep in mind, this was some time ago. And so HitEmUp has since been in the dojo. He has been... getting some work done on some other ideas, some other plans, and so he's got some strategies in mind going forward. So we'll see how that one shapes up. It's really funny to me that in HitEmUp's balance, you could call it complaints. I feel like that might be too charged a term, but commentary on the balance. He names one Zerg unit and then 4 Terran units, and who's he up against? A Terran player. Well, I wonder what might have informed that decision. But that's okay, because over here, ladies and gentlemen, did he even say apostles? I'm not sure. I think he just said I saw Blackjack, Eidolon, and Seal Shaman. So yeah, he didn't say apostles, so he missed a one. He definitely missed one there. That being said, we are going to see that quarry open up for HitEmUp, which means we are going to have a very aggressive 3-gate start for HitEmUp against something that's a little bit more economic, that takes a little bit more time to come into fruition. So let's see what HitEmUp can do with that. His opponent is just going to go ahead and worker scout him, but he does have a vulture nearly complete. And so that sounds to me like HitEmUp will have to deal with some mines, potentially get slapped around a little bit. And unlike the Zerg, you can't just grab an Ovaleth the way Art of Turtle did against Top Ramen and bring them with the quads to clear the mines and pressure the Terran that's being a bit on the greedier side. So I just find that to be kind of interesting. It's kind of neat, kind of novel. Drakadin on the way to the choke is going to go ahead and intercept this Mason, blocking it from scouting. So nice little moves there from HitEmUp. He's not going to allow it up the ramp to see it is, in fact, a 3-gate, and so he should be feeling pretty damn good about himself. I'm actually not 100% sure if the kiting there was necessary, but it certainly confirmed that there wouldn't be any chance that the Mason could get up the ramp and see what the gateway count was, because that obviously would change the Terran's POV. There's an immediate embassy behind this. I wouldn't be surprised if HitEmUp moves out with a ridiculous number of Drakadins and a witness, but at that point you might get a little bit too big for your britches over here for the Terran. You might have given him a little bit too much time to mass up Blackjacks on the ramp to hold. So that's something that I think by now I can safely announce. I've talked it over with Veek7, our co-developer here. We are co-homies, co-chromies in the... I guess you could say crow developer, right? That's like possible because, you're spoofing on co-developer. Anyway, we are crow developers, crow developing this game. And we have agreed that the cliff advantage will be going down to 1 instead of 2 after Acropolis 2. I'm not sure we'll do that for the pre-release update because there's going to be some show matches played on it and stuff. Maybe we'll get around to doing that and actually confirming that we want to do that, or maybe we'll leave it as like a feature that we only do for like the Winter War 2024, where everybody is welcome to sign up, no matter what your skill level, familiarity level is with the project. If you want to play in some organized games for fun and stuff, it's sort of like a tournament light. There's no prize money, at least not right now. Maybe somebody will send us some money. But not intended for prize money. It's just intended for fun. It's like a giant gathering, an end-of-year celebration to send Cosmonarchy off with a bang. And so maybe for that one, it would make sense to get that cliff advantage changed up. And I think in this situation, if there was no +2 weapon range on the cliff and it was instead only +1, I think you'd probably see HitEmUp bust here. Let's see how it goes. He might be able to do it anyway. Look at the number of Drakadins he's got, plus the witness, plus a 3rd base, double expanding behind his 3-gate position to try to catch up, economically speaking, to his opponent, who does admittedly have a worker advantage, courtesy of that quarry, and now the Ministry floating over to the natural. That's as the Nexus for HitEmUp, the first one, is halfway complete. So you can see what HitEmUp's game plan is here. Try to pivot pivot into that. And look, the mine's getting blocked off by Aoud as he comes down. This might have been the worst possible time to do that. We've got 9 Drakodons trying to pivot and pick off some of these Blackjacks, but some of his units are DPSing the Ministry instead of the combat units there. The weapon range we were just talking about definitely factoring in here. And so HitEmUp is going to have to fall back. It's a little bit of worker harassment, obviously delays the acquisition of this base, and is even going to come up and snipe another Blackjack. He's going to be trading out some of his Drakodons for it, though. Really got to watch out for that. Ministry circling back. That will, of course, be sent back to the natural as soon as possible. But now, now it's a little bit more of a fair starting point for HitEmUp versus his opponent to get the natural starting online. Now, the worker advantage still there for Aoud 64. He has the extra workers courtesy of the Taloses, those advanced flying workers that we've seen time and time again from him. Another pylon to expand the production zone for HitEmUp. We'll see what he wants to do for his added Protoss production. Actually, it's going to be rogue galleries. That is so interesting. I wonder what he's going to make out of those. Normally speaking, I would actually expect this to be Vagrants. That has hitherto been what Protosses have sided with when they go Rogue Gallery, but they haven't really gone Rogue Gallery. That's not really a meta option for Protoss these days. And so seeing it here, triple Rogue Gallery around this pylon, it could be Vagrants, it could also be Kabbalists. They have such an amazing amount of front-loaded damage that maybe in theory you could use them to jump straight onto Shamans and just burst them down. But that would be a very expensive trade. So you'd need to guarantee that, you have the firepower with the Drakodon count or Vagrants or whatever else in order to make good on that. That would just be me spitballing an alternative, though. I think Vagrants are probably what we're going to see. Starpad on the way here for Aoud, so he is going to be filtering in some Anseals. Mobile detection, as well as, of course, when the Shaman is deployed, it acts as a detector. The Covenant up here coming online for Aoud, he is going to be using that to great effect to start adding Eidolons into play. So the reason why you actually get an Anseal, at least one, versus Protoss, sure, you appreciate the shielding, but you want that mobile detection so that you can pick the witnesses. This has been a point of consternation for Protosses in this matchup for a while, that the witness moves very slowly, but is very vulnerable, and the Anseal moves pretty nimbly and is not very vulnerable. And so, obviously, the counter is you don't need detection to see the Anseal, but the Anseal is a detector. And so the fact that it sees the invisible units allows witnesses that are carelessly placed, or even sometimes carefully placed, to be sniped with precision by the Terran players, or indeed accidentally, if it just so happens that you left it here and then you flew it into this area or whatever. Obviously, like at that point, the Terran army would be getting crazy with it. Now, we've got a lot of stockades being added, but not a lot of Covenants being thrown down. In fact, blocking the site for 2 different add-ons to be added here. 3, actually, technically, with that one. So I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, I wonder if Aoud isn't just trying to make a bunch of Cyprians or Arakans and save his gas for tier 2 or something like that. The Cyprians obviously would cost some gas. It will be Mavericks. I love Mavericks, so this is great. I mean, he's the only guy who's making them, so I appreciate you, Aoud. We're going to have way more Rogue Galleries. What have they been making? Vagrants. So there is the prediction there. Going up to 7 Rogue Galleries off of 3 bases is not a bad shout. Worker count now, of course, caught up by HitEmUp. The Macro Machine continuing to kick into gear. He's got pretty good saturation here. Worth noting, for 400 minerals, you can go ahead and drop an Aquifer to cap your gas as Protoss. You don't need to wait for tier 2 to be accessed. So that's one thing that maybe HitEmUp will try to do later on if he so desires. But right now, it looks like he just needs the chaff. His military is looking about a little bit under, or a little bit over half of what Aoud 64 has. So it's not quite 50% of the army. Remember that the army's strength is pretty good for both players at this point. And yeah, there goes the witness to spot the Eidolons. And so there's not really any melee chaff or anything. These Drakodons just slowing the advance of the Terran army while HitEmUp gets a game plan going. He's actually invested into Charlatans. I think versus this kind of army, the range is probably a little bit too high for that to matter too much. Those did get buffed on pre-release, so it's a bit different now. A lot of things are different now, actually. The Shaman got adjusted. I don't think there's been any changes to the Eidolon. I can't remember. I know I'm planning a couple of potential ideas. And yeah, just generally speaking, the Charlatan is a little bit better. But you know what? What we get right now is a horde of Vagrants and a 4th base. This is a mineral-heavy base. You do have the 2 ridges there as well. And now you can see Aoud trying to set up for a bit of a containment. But HitEmUp is really powered up on his military count. So he's closed the gap, right? Or kept it relatively the same. That Anseal almost completely out of energy immediately. The engagement comes in. A lot of Vagrants coming in from the south, really splitting the concave here for Aoud. We've got a very large fight right now in the middle of the area. Now, the Charlatan shots are going to be adding a little bit of damage multiplication, but there's not really that much splash. More Vagrants coming in from the south to kind of clean up that flank as reinforcements pour in from the north. but I think the Protoss has held this fight and is going to extend the game. Very, very nice from HitEmUp to be able to do this, but as of right now, he is going to have to pull back. Like, Aoud can't really continue from this position, but with reinforcements coming, HitEmUp would have been making a mistake if he tried to get any closer to that army. You can see the Shaman starting to stack up the healing. You can see the Anceel, of course, still protecting. There's the one Phantom Eidolon just shooting, and a couple of Vagrants timing out there. When the Vagrant takes fatal damage, they actually turn into a duplicate of themselves that attacks faster and moves faster, but as a result, will take damage over time and eventually expire. So that's what you saw, the value of having the Vagrants there. They stayed alive for a lot longer. Well, they stayed active a lot longer. I think when they're dead, they're dead. But doomed, you could say. Certainly, HitEmUp getting his money's worth out of the Vagrant, adding a lot more of those, but it does feel like right now Aoud still has a pretty powerful army, and the Striders are more or less all dead for HitEmUp. So what is he going to be able to contest with? He's trying to use this little pocket of high ground. The Anceel is revealing a lot of those units. It does dive a little bit too close to the sun. That will immediately get its wings clipped. Off it goes. Saturation coming out from the 3 o'clock position. HitEmUp just kind of blindly rallying Scribes out of that spot. That kind of reveals it to Aoud that, oh, I could have been forcing an issue all this time, but has he waited too long as HitEmUp comes in from the south with plenty of Vagrants, the Charlatans damage multiplying on the Shamans, but not really any focus fire to back them up there. Still working out okay. Right now, it definitely feels like it could be more cost-efficient for HitEmUp. He just needs to target down those Shamans, but now he's lost the DPS necessary to do so. And a couple of units are engaging the Scribes over there. Just a couple of stimmed Mavericks. Very wisely set up there by Aoud. He's got reinforcements galore coming in, bio and some Blackjacks, but no healing. And now he's arriving too late to save those Shamans, it feels like. So we are going to look at HitEmUp trying to contest this army, getting a little bit of cliff advantage as he jumps up onto that ramp. More Zealots and Vagrants pouring on in from the south, reinforcing the position, and HitEmUp will riposte this assault. At the same time, Aoud trying to drop his 4th base. He's has set up this one with a treasury. Not great saturation on those plentiful mineral fields, but still enough, and his tier 2 did finish in the middle of that, so he's going to start adding in the captaincies, get those all-important apostles on the field. Good saturation over here in the 3rd, or I guess 4th base. He did lose some workers at the 3rd, so HitEmUp is going to have to replenish those, and he's adding a Crucible to enchant his gateways, but he only has the 3 of them. One of his rogue galleries is lonely off to the side there, not actually enchanted by this Crucible. No wonder he was able to get so many units so fast. Using the Crucible speeds up the rate at which the buildings operate. That includes static defense doing things like, shooting faster, structures regenerating shields faster, and so on and so forth. But of course, the most important fluctuation that you're going to get from that is that training speed. In fact, it doesn't even look like this one's added to the control group, unless he was just out of money when he hit the Qs a few times there. All right, Apostles, Madcaps, all of those advanced infantry units are starting to come online. We got 2 captaincies at each base. I actually kind of like the SimCity here. It's only 1 Sentinel. Anti-surface defense doesn't shoot up. But interesting that Aoud is elected to do that because it will protect him against limited run-bys. That being said, if it's like 6 Vagrants coming over here, you're going to kill the Sentinel. It's not really going to be that big of a deal. Still, not a bad shout. More and more Scribes oversaturating at this point, ever so slightly, the base in the bottom left there of the quadrant that HitEmUp has secured. And a little bit undersaturated on the minerals over here. Again, no gas caps for our Protoss player. He is switching into Mass Gate plus an Argosy. So he wants to access maybe the Didact. Could be Epigraphs to try to force multiply with their passive. And I love the little pylon wall here just to slow the advance of Aoud 64. Scribe moving, looks like all the way to Scout over here. But might actually end up getting pivoted to take one of those bottom left area bases. Nobody using the neutral geysers, something that Top Ramen bemoaned when he was playing against Aoud 64 earlier in Acropolis number 2. Saying that, the Talus is really good there, but Aoud has elected to not bother with them. He's starting to cap his own gas, the Terran player getting that value, and you can see the Sentinel revealing a couple of, or rather the Scribe revealing a couple of Sentinels up there at the 9 o'clock position. Macro continuing to be a pretty good flow here for both players, I would say. Keeping their money relatively low. HitEmUp has a lot of excess Vespene. We'll see how long that ends up holding, but his mineral income is definitely higher. Remember, he'd never capped any of his gas. Pylons are slowly being brought on down, but this is giving HitEmUp a lot of time to respond and try to set up a little bit of a flank. You can see Aoud being a little bit antsy, not necessarily wanting to allow his opponent to just jump in over here. And look at that. Just like that, the go signal is pushed. Mass Charlatan, Mass Vagrant, plenty of Rogue Gallery units representing for the Protoss player, but he doesn't really have too much else. Zealots charging the front line, just getting absorbed by the Apostles. But hey, focus fire on that right flank, really helpful. There's only one Apostle left in the fight, and he too will soon be focused down, it feels like. It's only a matter of time. Now, those Eidolons are in gross numbers right now, but we've got Zealots and Empyreans reigning supreme over here. And while it was a very bloody fight, Aoud just lost so many resources worth of gas in the way that those Eidolons all fell down. Sure, you got a couple more units raining on in. That is actually going to stop HitEmUp from progressing any further. He did have a number of units on his rallies that could have maybe been used there, but I guess you could say the same for Aoud 64, who is doing his best to replenish his army. But you can tell right now the difference maker is not very many military units. We are going to start to get depletion in those main bases for both players, and I think narrowly HitEmUp might have a faster depletion rate on his naturals, but of course the third is up way faster for our Protoss player. Still, no fifth base for either one, but Aoud is considering it. And it looks like he's even going to go ahead and drop it. Hurakan guarding the upper right low ground base. Another one guarding the bottom left bases, both of them, in fact. So making sure he's not conceding the base race or anything. Double ancestral archives by these crucibles. HitEmUp has said before, if you get up to enough uptectons, you mulch through Aoud's composition. Pretty much any tier 2 ground-based composition. Aoud, to his credit, has been sticking to the ground, has not actually gone for starports or anything of the sort, certainly no drops despite his single star pad occasionally producing Anseals, although that has long since stopped happening. A pylon has been set up for this position here, I guess. Interesting enough. And yeah, it looks like HitEmUp going to be taking the mirrored base that Aoud 64 was taking just because of that guard. You can see him pre-splitting some of his army as more and more Empyreans rain in. Now, this is a situation where he doesn't really have good vision on where his opponent is. You can see his vision kind of ends around this cliff area. And so until Aoud really pulls the trigger on an attack, HitEmUp's going to be completely in the dark as to how deep his opponent is into his territory. You got this one witness out here that might have seen a couple of things here and there. Now the Ancestral Archives are producing Optectons, keeping his money so damn low and investing in a mortgage so he can... he's reverse mortgaged his house at this point so that he can afford that. Here we go. Another fight comes on in as, of course, Aoud strides forward. I mean, I still don't like the position for him because so many of his apostles are very, very vulnerable right now. You can see he's up to about 3 of them as, again, war on multiple fronts of this flank. However, he is slowly mulching through the Vagrants. They are turning at a very gross rate right now for HitEmUp. He's got to fall back. His Empyreans need to be preserved so he can get that splash damage. The first of the Optectons is out. Perhaps the second one as well. Let's get them into the fight. HitEmUp charging the lasers, and you can see how good they are combined with those Empyreans. The Apostles can't simply attack fast enough to get those units back up and running. Now, at the same time, if this Nexus goes down, that would be a big hit to HitEmUp's economy. Remember that Aoud has behind this saturated his 5th base, at least somewhat, and now he's pouring his forces in, including some reclaimed zealots. A starport was made to dematrix those apostles and shamans using the Azazels to good measure, but the Empyreans are enduring, and the Optectons continue to fire. A third has joined the fray, and this should be the super unit composition that HitEmUp needs to turn this tide. That being said, he is about to lose 2 Nexuses, and that one at 3 o'clock is so damn important, but it goes down. Great focus fire on the way out, but that will clear so many of the workers. HitEmUp now having to play with what feels like a really strong composition, and yet ultimately at the end of the day, a much worse economy than his opponent. Now the question is, can Aoud switch into enough units that will actually turn the tide of the battle when that battle comes? He doesn't really have a strong army size. In fact, this amount of units over here is a significant chunk of his force. Well, there might have been a stolen witness at one point, so that's kind of cute. Scribes coming back as well. They are going to decloak the Eidolons. That's not nothing. As the Vagrants are struggling to make it past the Heracles front line, they eventually do, surging on through, and the healing is gone for the most part. Those Apostles eventually being broken down by those Uptectons. It's a lot of revives, but it's simply not sufficient. The Vagrants really doing their job there, I gotta say, as frontline for everything else. And the lasers are relentless from the Uptectons. This Azazel should try to get out of dodge, but it looks like it's too busy. You know, Aoud is too busy trying to set up additional bases off the back of this. A lot of workers did end up going down for HitEmUp, but he has replenished a lot of them. He's reset his Nexus at the natural. He needs to actually allocate workers to this extra base, and then he'll only be down one mining base from his opponent, who is setting up a 6th in the top right high ground, and maybe considering the bottom left low ground at the same time. At this point, though, the Witness spotting over here. We have an Archon for the first time I've seen in quite a while. Have no fear, by the way. Smaller units can actually move through underneath the Uptecton, like things like Zealots and stuff. Can be pretty thematic to watch them march over the army. Similar to, I guess, the Starcraft 2 Colossus, but I'd say this one is more Chadley in nature. Now, once again, HitEmUp about to lose a Nexus, but this one isn't actually active for mining for beyond, 4 workers, right? So it's not really the end of the world here. Now, what we're going to see is HitEmUp try to pressure his opponent by using those Uptectons, and the Hurricans are here to try to stop that, but look at how the Zealots and Archons come in at just the right time. You gotta watch out for those Autocrats. They will start to regenerate some of those hostiles, and if the Uptectons start to turn, things could get real bad real quick. And Empyrean was able to be immolated by the Seraph in the back line, which was slowly rending the armor, but it was kicked back. And I feel like this might be that turn. Yep, that's going to be it with the Autocrats turning part of the army. A lot of those Uptectons and Empyreans that were converted over, very, very wounded. But yeah, that's it. So dumb. That's his version of GG. And he had more reinforcements coming, but the economic damage overwhelming. And then, of course, Aoud using those Reclaimers to good use, putting them to good use there. Definitely a difficult thing for HitEmUp to move through because his front line melted a little bit too far. I think it really comes down to the economics, right? Sure, you can say that the Terran was able to he just made the Autocrats, that's the win unit. But there is a way in which you, in this patch, in this version of the game, can defeat that when it comes to the Autocrats actually being out on the field. And it's to have enough of a front line that occupies their shots, that intercepts their shots, so that the revives never get to your very meaty units. And I think that's really where it came down to, right? I mean, HitEmUp lost 2 bases to that big assault because the Uptectons didn't come online just in the nick of time, right? They came online in enough time to hold the army, hold the push. But from there, it was a little bit dicey to get his economy back online and then actually get enough Zealots, enough Vagrants to stop the Autocrats from reclaiming his Uptectons. So as soon as he moved out into open terrain, that's what favored Aoud's army. My analysis of the game, you have your own eyes, of course. GG, boys. We'll be back for more Cosmonarchy action very soon, and we're entering into that final stretch of Acropolis number 2 with the Winter War 2024 on the horizon. We'll see you guys then on the last weekend of December as well for more action. And thanks for a great year. GG's.